Does your golf swing look like this? Well, don't be discouraged. Stay tuned for Modern Golf, featuring Dave Hill, one of America's fine young touring professionals, and Hal Scheidler, the man who believes everyone can break 80. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome once again to another session of Modern Golf. My name is Hal Scheidler, and that's right, I do believe everyone can break 80 at least occasionally. That, of course, is the primary purpose of our show, to attempt to help you to build an image of a good golf swing in your own mind. And we believe the only reason so many people play so poorly is because they know so little about what they're really trying to do. We're speaking to you today from the beautiful Indian Wells Country Club, just outside Palm Desert, California. And working with us, as usual, during this entire series, one of America's fine young touring professionals, Mr. Dave Hill. Welcome aboard, Davey.
Thank you, Hal. It's nice to be here again.
We're always happy to see your smiling face out here in sunny Southern California, and I know that you have some good tips worked up for us for today.
Well, I hope so, and about that smiling face, you haven't seen me after I three-putted a few.
Well, yes, I have. I was out on that tour with you too long. I've seen you both ways, but all in all, I think you take it pretty good. And, Davey, out here, we have an opportunity once again today to shoot a great deal of ultra slow motion. And I believe, as I've pointed out many times during these shows, if when we are using ultra slow motion that the folks will just focus on one particular point of the golf swing, that they'll actually see a lot more. And if they actually work on one phase of their game at a time, that they'll accomplish more.
Well, that's right, Hal. It's impossible to follow the entire swing and see all phases of it. You have to watch either the hips or the shoulders or the left arm or the right arm, and follow that through the whole swing, because if you try to switch from point to point, you'll miss everything.
Right, and I feel that if you gain just 1 point each week throughout the series and add it to your golf game, by the time the series is over, you've got to be a lot better player. We'll be ready to go to work down on the practice tee in just 1 minute, so why don't you stand by and join us there. We've been getting a great number of requests for information regarding the club shaft and the ball. So we're going to ask the pro to pass along his opinions, and of course I have some too, and we'll discuss it a little bit. Davey, I know that many people are concerned when they go to buy a set of golf clubs. They don't go maybe to their golf professional, or maybe they don't know a golf professional, and so they may buy a set of sticks from someone that isn't suited for them at all, and this of course doesn't do their game any good. How would you judge a player's need for a particular shaft?
Well, Hal, everybody should see their home pro if possible. But I always judge a player's need for a shaft is by the speed of his swing and how strong he is. A person with a short, fast swing needs a stiff shaft so he can control a club head. And if he's a big, strong fella, he also needs a stiff shaft. But somebody that swings the club head and doesn't play a whole lot, they can go to the medium shaft, and the weights stay about the same, D2, D3. The overall weight's important, but we won't get into that because that might confuse everybody.
Actually, a weaker player who, just as Dave says, swings the club will get considerable help from a softer shaft.
That's right, Hal, and if you talk about the compression of a golf ball, there's 1 out of every 60 players, or maybe 1 of every 100 that can use a compression over 90. I say stay with a 90 compression golf ball, and your game will stay pretty much about the same.
A lot of people have the idea they may go in and they see a golf ball that's marked 100. Well, most of them, particularly if they go at it like I do, they might just as well play with rocks, because they can't compress the ball at all, and consequently they get very little action. Dave plays 100 part of the time, but sometimes you go to the 90. Do you not, Dave?
Well, I play the 90, I would say 80% of the time. When the temperature gets up to about 85, 90, during the summertime I'll go to the 100 compression, because the heat, the ball will respond a whole lot better than the 90, and you get a little bit more distance. Not that much that it really matters to the average player, because he doesn't hit it solid every time he hits it.
I think there we may have answered a couple of your questions. Number 1, see your local professional. Number 2, if you are going to buy a set of shafts and you're going to get a stiff shaft, you better be sure that you can hit at that ball pretty good. Secondly, when you go into the pro shop to buy golf balls, always get the softer ball, say the 85 or the 90 compression ball. I think there are two tips that'll help the average player a great deal. Well, with the ever-increasing popularity of the game of golf, there are a great number of newcomers to the game who are not too familiar with the nomenclature. I'm sure that in watching many of the telecasts and broadcasts of tournaments throughout the country, that they hear many terms used in professional golf, and they're not too sure exactly what they're talking about. I, for instance, in hearing some players discussing a particular round, someone asking them about a given shot, they've said, well, they had a shooter or a flyer and just let it get away. This is an explanation which I'm sure will satisfy only about 10% of the people. So I've asked Davy to set up two balls in the fairway, one in what we would consider a good lie, the other in what we would call a shooting lie or a flyer, and then Dave will tell you what he would do about each one. Davy?
Yes, Hal, the difference here, as you can see, this ball here is a very good lie, and this ball here is sitting down in the grass. With the first ball and a good lie, if I were 155 yards from the green, I could take a 7-iron and actually work the ball. In other words, I can put the club head on the ball in such a fashion that I can spin the ball either way, left or right. And with this ball here, as you can see, the grass will get between the club face and the ball, causing the ball to go in either direction with absolutely no control. The grass, when I make contact, the juice in the grass splatters against the club face and it causes it slick. This ball here will go 10, 20 yards further than this ball here. This ball, the maximum distance is maybe 160. Out of a flying lie, I can hit the ball with a 7-iron 180 sometimes. And let me tell you, when you get a shooter and you got 155 yards to go and you hit it 180, most times you got to drop one and start again. It'll be out of bounds. This ball here is the best in the world to play with. You can stand there and do anything with it because, as I say, you can spin the ball. The club face will grip the ball. Here, the club face will not grip the ball and it'll get away from you.
Let's see an example of maneuvering the ball from a good lie. Say the wind is blowing from right to left and he has a 6-iron. Dave might take the 5-iron and choke it up a couple of inches and punch it. There will be practically no release of the hands. The left arm just pulls the club through the shot so it will stay low and fade work into the wind. Many questions come in regarding the club head position at the top of the swing. The toe of the club will point to the ground when the club shaft is horizontal, not only on the backswing, but also on the follow-through. Perhaps we can see it even better from here. This is the perfectly square position most fine players would like to achieve all the time. The toe of the club points at the ground when the club shaft is horizontal. The nearer you can come to making a perfect circle with the club head, the closer you're coming to a fine swing. That's beautiful. I know we talk a great deal on these shows about all the various component parts of the golf swing. However, I must always go back to the basic mechanics and remind you that the little area of probably a half an inch for the average golfer with the average golf club is just as long as the swing really has anything to do with the golf ball. If you know anything about mechanics, you'll realize that the only time the force can influence the object is when the two are actually in contact. And we've taken some shots to show you just how long the striking force, the golf club, is actually in contact with the golf ball. And at no other time can anything you do influence the golf ball. All the other motions are merely to get you in a position to keep the club face square along the intended line of flight for just that much. I'm going to show you something I think you'll find it a little difficult to believe. We're now using a super speed experimental research camera and shooting at the rate of 4,000 frames per second. That's about 166 times regular speed. Dave is using a driver, and we have an excellent opportunity to study his foot and leg action. Note that the left foot barely leaves the ground. That's the story of power and balance right there. Now he has started the big move to the left side. The hips are shifting laterally forward, and you can see the power flowing to the left. Note how the right foot lends power to the golf swing, much as it would to a fighter throwing a right cross. As the club head enters the hitting area, the hands are moving well ahead of the ball and pulling the club head through. You won't want to believe this, but the club head is in contact with the ball for less than 1/6,000th of a second. Notice the tee spinning through the lower right of your picture? That should give you an idea of just how fast that club head is moving. And now back to the feet, and all the weight has shifted to the left foot. Only the toe of the right foot touches the ground for balance. At the finish, you could lift Dave's foot right off the ground, and it would not affect his balance. This time we're going to use a short iron, and we have to start Dave's swing before we start the camera. The camera only holds 100 feet of film, and this is all used up in just about 1 second. I want you to watch his left heel very closely as I remind you to keep those feet on the ground. Roll the feet, much as though the soles were round, but don't get up on your toes. The head is still in position behind the ball. The legs are surging forward to accommodate the lateral shift of the hips. The weight is all moving to the left, and the power of the right foot is being released. The club head is in the square position as it smashes through the ball and directs it along the line of flight. The left arm has now done its job of leading the club head down through the ball and can now collapse and bring the club to a stop. There's an old saying that you'll never see a player finish a bad shot, and it's pretty true. Think your way to a good finish, and you'll find yourself building a fine golf swing. Get this foot action set in your mind. Try to duplicate it next time you go out to practice. You'll find that a good finish means a good swing. Okay, now hold it just a second, young lady. I want to show Marcia something here, and this may help you too. Give David a little break. Marcia, one of your problems is that we have this right elbow too far out. This way it cannot break up. So drop the right elbow behind and turn it facing down. This will give you an opportunity. In other words, in this fashion, if I have the elbows here and the right elbow is out in front, and now as I take the club back, this elbow tends to break this way. Now I've got the club outside the line. This is why we have to come back. So if you'll always drop the right elbow back, and a good trick for you to remember, lay the right hand down like this with the palm facing the line of flight, then leave the elbow there and simply turn the wrist over. Now when the elbow breaks, it will break down to the body as it should. Okay, now let's try it again. That's right. And face this up just a hair, right? Now, look directly at the ball with both eyes, and on the last one, you took your head off and came out a little thin. So remember, when we get to the top, pull straight down from the inside with that left hand, go right on out through it, and see that club head get a divot before you ever look to see where the ball goes. And pull it. Okay, not too bad. The shot came off pretty good, but we're still having a little trouble here, Marsh, with the hands. You're getting the left hand over in this position, and now you have the club face shut, and you're actually trying to hit the ball in this manner. Let's put the left hand up on top with the thumb just slightly over to the right of the center line. Very good. Now you put the right hand on facing it, and in this manner, now the wrists can work in this fashion, and it'll give you a lot of freedom in your hands, and you won't have a tendency to shut that club face, and under pressure, you'll be pulling that one to the left quite a bit. Okay? Hit one more for me now, and let's see if we can't. Let's get the hands on there in good shape. Keep that right elbow tucked in. Look at the ball with both eyes and really pull it when you start back down to that ball. Much better. Let's put the slow motion camera on the pro and point up what we were just talking about, Marcia. Dave will use the same club you were using and punch this shot to overemphasize the left arm drive. See how the right hand seems to be trying to catch up? That's the way it should be. I've asked him to hit this one with one hand, but that will change nothing in the right elbow action. It will point to the ground at the top of the backswing, and the elbow will drive straight down at the ball as it moves through inside the right hip. Looks easy, doesn't it? You keep working on that. Let's make a quick check on his head position. The head should never move forward from its original starting position until the ball is gone. That'll put an arch in your back, and that's exactly what you want. Now, if you'll bear with me, I have one more of those super speed shots. Again, we're shooting at 4,000 frames per second. This view dramatizes the leg action we were checking earlier, and I couldn't resist throwing it in. Dave has just reached the top of the backswing, and you'll note that the right leg is back and reasonably straight, while the left knee has moved down toward the ball. On the downswing, the right knee moves forward and toward the ball as the left starts to straighten and charge forward. Note the spin to the left after the lateral shift of the hips, although the shoulders are still square with the line of flight and the head is in the original position. This tremendous drive of the lower body generates fantastic club head speed as it tries to catch up. The hit is carried through to about waist high on the follow-through. And this is what we mean when we say hit through the ball, not to the ball. At this point, the left arm starts to collapse and not before. The momentum of the club head will then carry you on to the big finish with the elbows above the shoulders and the hands above the head. The weight is all forward on the left side. The entire body can now relax, and chances are you've hit a good golf shot. Now it's time for the competitive portion of our show, where Dave competes with himself on the fine 7th hole here at beautiful Indian Wells Country Club. This is a par 5 playing out at about 515 yards with the mountain and OB on the right, trees and trouble on the left. A huge tree overlooks the dogleg out about 250 yards. Just about one of the most beautiful holes you could hope to find anywhere. Dave will be playing the first ball in the conventional manner, that is, leaving both hands on the shaft throughout the swing. He will set it up for the right side of the fairway and attempt to draw the ball slightly. If it fails to draw, he is in no trouble in that side of the fairway. Just about as good as you can hit it, out around 290 yards and in perfect position. For the one-hand shot, he will aim left of the first ball, shooting directly at the right side of that big tree and fading the ball to the center of the fairway. He generally does fade this shot when he hits it with one hand. Well, the pro's wearing his playing shoes today. Another super shot, left center of the fairway and just a couple of yards short of the first ball. For his second shot with one hand, Dave is going with a 2-iron, and he knows he'll have to bust it. He doesn't dare go with the forewood, as anything left or long can be disastrous. He got over that one just a little and left it right. It should be in the front bunker. With two hands, again, the 2-iron. Now, Dave now knows he can knock it on or very close. Again, he'll start it out to the right side and draw it back in. A big shot, but it isn't drawing, staying dead straight, and he leaves it just short of hole high off the right edge of the green. What a beautiful green. Well bunkered and with fine breaks that are really tough to read. And Davey's got a tough little bunker shot here. The ball will stop very quickly. He floats it right up there. A fine shot, about 7 feet from the pin. Davey's two-handed shot was just about perfect distance, but stayed out to the right rather than drawing as he had intended. The green breaks sharply away here and will be kind of fast, but he should get this reasonably close. Nice chip. And about 5 feet long. Highly makeable for a birdie. Davey's been practicing putting cross-handed, and he'll go that way here. Keeping the cross-handed action has kept him from turning the right hand over, and he's been putting somewhat better. A fine stroke, dead center of the cup, and a fine birdie 4 on a good hole. Now this one's about 5 feet, and it'll come a little left. A great 4. That's pretty much our story for today. We hope that we passed along some information to you that'll help you to take a couple of 3 pops off of your golf game. And Davey, congratulations. That was a fine play on a mighty tough golf hole.
Well, thank you, Hal. You normally, at least I normally don't get it up and down from off the edge of the green like I did today. It seems to be an easier game when you're practicing and then when you're playing for keeps.
Well, out there when you've got all that money riding on it, but I do know this, Davey, that this hole was used as the 18th hole during the Classic, and that there are about a half a dozen fellows who finished well up in the money list. Had they had 4s there, would have been several $1,000s better off.
Well, anytime you make a 4 on the 18th hole or a birdie on the 18th hole in a final day, it always means a little bit of money, if not a lot of money. Sometimes the whole tournament will ride on it.
What happens too, Davey, I know you fellas have a little special saying that you have to call on once in a while when you make like double bogey on that last hole.
Well, you can always say it's not your life or your wife, it's just money, and we can go to any bank and get it.
And there's another tournament coming up next week.
Yeah, if there wasn't a tournament every week, that 18th hole might make more people butt their heads against the wall.
Oh, fine. Well, Davey, I want to thank you very much for being with us, and of course you'll be back next week.
Sure will, Hal.
Good. We've been speaking to you once again from the beautiful Indian Wells Country Club just outside Palm Desert, California. And Davey will be back with us next week, same time, same station. Until then, this is Hal Scheidler reminding you, keep your head down and your left arm straight, and believe me, you can break 80.